So in the last one, we got our forks redone, aluminum polished, new dust caps and seals, new fluid rebuilt. So those are good to go. Today we're going to look at rebuilding these shocks, and it's not going to be a rebuild so much as we're just going to take them, clean them up, get a bit of paint on them where it needs. And I also need to order one bushing because that bushing there is pretty much squashed out. I got a couple beer while we're working away. So without further ado, let's begin. So the first thing we're going to want to do is, you can see this notch here. When you compress these springs, this washer kind of slides down and then off around the main post here. So I think the easiest way to get these apart is going to be, I released them all the way down to their lowest setting, so the spring is easier to pull down on manually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drop this rubber stop down. That's the thing where it bottoms out. It'll hit off that. And just pop the spring down a tiny bit. I should be able to pop this right out like that. And there we go. There's our shock taken apart. Take off the sleeve here because we're going to clean that plastic sleeve up as well. Take our adjuster off. Just going to be able to clean all this stuff up. So I'll get the other one apart and then we'll start cleaning this stuff up. So we disassembled the shocks. I discovered that we've got one that's no good and one that's good. So I went ahead and ordered one of these on eBay. So in the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to set this one aside, clean up all our parts, probably get some silver paint on these components, assemble this one side, likely assemble the broken one as well, without painting and cleaning this one up because it'd be a waste of effort. But that way at least I can put the swing arm back on the bike, and then we'll have a look at the wheels. Got some degreaser, gonna give it a shot. Soak the stuff down, then we can wipe it off and have a look in a few minutes time to see if we can get this stuff to come off. Okay, we'll give this some time to do its thing, and we'll see if we can get most of that dirt off. So it seems like that degreaser product is decent. It's taking most of the stuff out of the plastic. There's like 30 years worth of rust ground into some places on this, so unless you sand it down deep, you're not going to get it all. But I think it's good enough for our purposes. It's going to sit inside the spring anyways. You're barely going to notice it. So, continuing on. So once again, you know, it's not too bad. It's clean enough. So I'm gonna go ahead and send you guys away. I'll clean up the rest of the parts here. I'll knock them down with some sandpaper, get them ready for paint, and then I'll bring you back when we're ready to stick a bit of paint on them. So I gave a couple pieces of hardware wiped down. Some of it's coming clean, some of it's not. You can see this one has a bit of, woo! There it goes. So this one has a bit of chowdering on it. It's a bit rough, but that's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fire up the sandblaster and just blast off these 3 parts. I'm going to go ahead and squirt the springs with a bit more of the degreaser and just let them rest for a bit longer while I'm blasting this stuff off, because this should only take me a minute or so in the sandblaster, and then the paint will go on a lot better. So I decided to pull the eyepiece off of the end of the damper that's working. I also went ahead and taped up the shaft and the rubber and whatnot, because what I want to do is I'm going to sandblast this, and that way I know I'm getting a really good surface to paint on. So you can see it's all stripped down and ready to be painted, as well as sandblasted, sorry, as well as these pieces here. So I'm going to toss all this in the sandblaster and get down to blasting. Hopefully I cleaned up the blaster enough so you can see. I'm going to go ahead and get down to business. with that cutting in, I will bring you back once it's done. So at this point I've got these two pieces of hardware blasted and this damper blasted. See where there was rust down through at some points. Once we get our bit of primer and then some paint on that stuff, it should look really good. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit these with a bit of primer, and then we'll hit them with a bit of the heat gun, and then we should be able to hit them with a bit of paint. Okay, so we're gonna blast this stuff off with a bit of air. Then we'll go ahead and hit it with some primer. So I'm just gonna go ahead and paint these right on this cardboard and paper. I'll spray them one side, put the heat gun on them for a bit to dry it. Then I'll flip them over, get it with a bit more, and then we'll come back and do the same with some silver paint. Okay, let's put the heat gun on this and help it dry. I don't know if you can see it or not, but as I'm putting the heat on the components here, you can see them turning from like a wet shiny to like a matte finish. And that's because the heat coming from the heat gun is just flashing off the solvents, like the carriers for the paint. It helps to dry it a lot faster. So once I do this, and I can flip these over and get the other side, we'll hit them with heat again, and then we should be ready to toss a bit of the silver paint on them. I really like the way the silver looks. Actually does a really good job. I know it's not chrome. And I'm not going to take things and get them re-chrome because that costs a lot of money. But for our purposes, this Rust-Oleum high heat, metal colored paint works really well. So this is where we're at now with that shock that's good and the other components that are off the broken shock. We've got our plastics cleaned up a bit. They're still a bit dirty, but I mean, like I said, they're going to be in under the springs and everything, so they're not really going to show up. I will give them another wipe down before I assemble again, but for now, I'm content with that. See, we've got our silver paint on our damper, on our adjuster, on our end cap, whatnot. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn my focus toward springs. So I'm going to hit these with another bit of degreaser. I'm going to go ahead and then wipe them down with some soapy water. And then depending on the kind of shape they're in, we might just give them a light sanding and go ahead and hit them with some nice gloss black paint. So now I'm getting them decently cleaned up. I'm starting to see there's like a lot of rust on them. A lot of bare spots inside where the springs, you see the silvery spots inside there, where the springs were rubbing on the, I guess the plastic. I guess over time it will, I don't know, either way. These are still pretty dirty. I'm tempted to try the sandblaster, but I really don't want to put that much effort into these springs because once I get them dry, and just like lightly sand it on the outside. A bit of gloss black paint on these is going to make them look like $1,000,000. So I'm going to go ahead and send you guys away. I'm going to spend a bit more time, probably 15 or 20 minutes or so, just cleaning these up, hit them with some brake cleaner and whatnot, and then we'll look at getting some black paint on them. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is hit that with a bit of air, then hit it with a bit of brake cleaner, then I'll let it flash off, or I'll dry it off with the heat gun, and then we'll try putting a bit of black paint on it and see how it turns out. So I've gone through some light sanding, wiped them down, blew them off, wiped them down again, some brake cleaner. So I'm going to wipe everything down with some wax and grease remover, some acetone, and we're going to go ahead and hit these with some black paint. That's one cleaned up. I'll do the same with the other, and then it's time to paint. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and throw another quick coat of black on those, and then we're just gonna have to leave them to dry. Just want to take a quick look now at what we've got done. So if we get a little up close shot here, you see it's looking pretty decent, I must say. They're nice and shiny. They look clean. So I figured now once we get these assembled, they're going to look really nice. Okay, so we're going to have to do a quick look at the wheels to see what we're going to need. Make sure you guys can see this. Yeah, okay. So, right off the bat, we're going to need some brake pads because they are not here. Front axle's good. We're going to replace bearings. We're going to replace spokes. We're going to replace tires. So, yeah, so tires, spokes, brake pads, and bearings for the front. So I'll have a quick look at the, this is where the speedo cable is. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see in there. Let me tilt the camera down for a second. So if we have a look in here, we can see that little nub that the speedo cable attaches to. I'll get this to focus right now. Hello. Okay, so you see the little nub in there. If I turn the speedo gear, you should see that turning. It's a bit gummy now because the old grease and stuff is in there. Once we clean that out, that should spin free. So that's all well and good. So we're gonna take you guys back up. So once again, we need a tire, spokes, brake pads, and bearings for the front. And our tire size is 2.75 by 21. So that's our front. quick look at our rear. Also, these rims are in a lot worse shape than I thought they would be, so I'm gonna redo all this. I'm gonna delace them, put new spokes in them. But while they're delaced, I'm probably gonna clean these rims up really well, and we'll look at potentially painting them with the silver paint that we've been using on everything else. I think it would be an alright middle ground. I don't think there's gonna be a way to clean the chrome up on these because there's a pretty deep pitting in places. So, on the back here, show you guys this. These brake pads are looking really good actually. There's a lot of pad material and they look pretty much new, to tell you the truth. So that's working well. So we don't have to worry about ordering any pads. So we're gonna want a tire, spokes, and wheel bearings for this one as well. And our tire size here is 4x18. So, since we're still waiting for some paint to dry with regard to our suspension parts for the rear, I'm going to call it quits for today. So, with our little inspection of our wheels being done, we know what we have to order. Got it written down on our list over there. So back, front, one of our dampers and most of the shock hardware cleaned up and done here. Frames are waiting to go back together. So at this point, we're ready to attach the swing arm to the frame, get our shocks reassembled. Once the paint on those cures, I'm going to give them a couple days, probably put a bit of clear on them as well. We've got the steering bearings so we can get our shiny forks on. And then once we receive the parts that we need for our wheels, we'll be ready to put this thing together as a roller. So we'll have our handlebars, our triple tree, our fork, everything on the front. We'll have the swing arm, the shocks in the back. Still waiting on that one other damper, but that's okay. We'll put the old one on for the time being. And we should be ready to forge ahead then with getting all our other parts cleaned up and put back on the bike. So, that being said, I want to thank you guys for joining me. And stay tuned. We'll see you next time.